Guys, in the previous lectures, we have discussed Coulomb's law and its applications. Basically, Coulomb's law gives electrostatic force between two charges separated by distance r as F is equals to K into Q1 Q2 by R square. So now this Coulomb's law cannot be applied in all situations. There are certain limitations for it. So let us discuss those limitations. The first one, it is applicable only for static charges. It means when charges are moving, these charges produce magnetic effects as we discussed in the first lecture. Now when these charges are producing magnetic effects, the net force applied by one charge on other charge will be different from K into Q1 Q2 by R square. So we cannot apply Coulomb's law in case of moving charges. So next limitation, it is applicable only for point charges. So guys, point charge means entire charge is located at a single point, but in general the charges are always distributed. So the charge is not located at a single point. We can't find point charges. So now when you have distributed charges, the distance between the charges or the distance between the bodies will be different for different points. So now we cannot take the distance to be distance between the centers. So here in Coulomb's law, we cannot substitute r as distance between centers of these two. So then how to apply Coulomb's law for distributed charges? So let us discuss how to find electrostatic force between distributed charges. So for that, first let us discuss distribution of charges in different situations. Now first, let us say charge is distributed over a line. So we call it as linear charge distribution. In case of linear charge distribution, we define a term called linear charge density lambda, that is charge per unit length. Now when charge per unit length is constant, we call it as a uniform charge distribution. In case of uniform charge distribution, we can write lambda value as total charge. Let us say it is Q over this line and the length is L and it is uniform everywhere. So the lambda will be equal to Q by L. Now once we got linear charge distribution, we can find charge on any part. So for example, let us say we want a charge on this small part. Let us say its length is dl. So now you can find a dq, charge on this part, as lambda into dl. So this is how you can find charge on any part in case of linear charge distribution. So next case, when charge is distributed over a surface, that is, let us say you have the charge is distributed throughout the surface. Now we call this distribution as surface charge distribution. So in this case, we define a term called surface charge density sigma. It is charge per unit area, right? So when charge per unit area is constant, we call it as uniform charge distribution. So in case of uniform charge distribution, sigma will remain constant throughout the body, and the sigma value can be given by total charge. Let us say it is Q and the area of the surface is A. So the sigma is given by Q by area. So this is how you can calculate surface charge density in case of uniform charge distribution. Now once you got charge density, we can find charge over any region. Let us take this small region, let us say dA. In this small region you want to find charge, so dq is given by sigma into dA. So this is how you can calculate charge over any part. So this is surface charge distribution. The next case, when charge is distributed over a volume, that is, let us say this charge is distributed over throughout this volume. So throughout the volume, the charge is distributed, let us say the charge is Q. Now in this case, we define a term called a volume charge density, that is rho is equals to dq by dv, that is charge per unit volume. Now in case of uniform charge distribution, this rho will be, that is volume charge density will be constant, and its value can be given by, as we know total charge is distributed uniformly. So we know Q charge is distributed uniformly over a volume V. So now charge per unit volume will be Q by V. So this is how we can define charge density, volume charge density in case of volume charge distribution. Once we got volume charge density, we can find charge over any small volume. Let us say this volume is dV. So here charge is given by dq is given by rho into dV. So this is how to deal with charge distributions. Guys, now let us discuss the process of finding force between a distributed charge and a point charge. Usually this topic is taught once we have discussed the concept of electric field. But I am explaining it here to make you understand the significance of electric field and how the concept of electric field makes these kind of questions very simple, and also to make you comfortable with using integral calculus in physics. Guys, even after watching this video, if you are uncomfortable with calculus, you can watch the video calculus for physics, which I'll be uploading as soon as possible. Now let us start with first example, that is force between a uniformly charged rod and a point charge on the axis of the rod. Guys, I'll explain entire process step by step. So let us look at the first step. As we cannot apply Coulomb's law for a distributed charge and a point charge because we cannot find the distance between this point charge and the rod, because distance of each and every part of this rod is different from the point charge. So what we do? So we have to, first step is we have to break the charge distribution. So we'll break, how to break it? In a systematic manner such that you can find force on all the parts individually. You should be able to find. So what we are doing here, we are breaking this rod into parts, and this breaking has to be in a systematic manner. It should not be random. So we are breaking in a systematic manner such that you should be able to find force due to each and every element. So for example, if I pick this element, I should be able to find force between these two. Now I can find this distance, and once I got distance, each and every part is your infinitesimally small, means you can treat it as a point charge, so we can find force between these two. Similarly, if I pick this element, I can find force between these two. Similarly, any element I pick it, I should be able to find the force. Okay, so this is how to break the charge distribution. Once we have break the charge distribution, now as we cannot find force due to each and every element manually and add them, because we have infinite number of very small parts, we have to use the mathematical tool called integral calculus. So to use that, we have to assign a variable. So how to assign a variable? The second one is pick an element. How to pick the element? By assigning a variable and increasing it infinitesimally, means very small, next to 0. Now I'll pick one element. You should not pick manually, because if you pick manually, you cannot use calculus. So we have to pick it by assigning a variable. So let us assign a variable, that is distance from this point charge x, and we are changing it by a very small value dx, infinitesimally small value called dx. Okay, so we have picked this element. Once you have picked this element, here while picking the element, you have to be careful. You have to take care that assigning of variable has to be in such a way that by changing it infinitesimally from lower limit to upper limit, you should be able to pick all the elements of the charge distribution. Means by changing this variable from certain lower limit to upper limit, the entire charge distribution you should be able to pick. Now let us say this rod, if I keep this x value as a d, that is a lower limit, as d, I'll get this element, right? And if I keep this x value as a d plus l, so I'll get this element. So if I change the value of x from d, that is lower limit d, to upper limit d plus l, I'll get entire rod in this case. So we have divided the charge distribution and we have picked an element by choosing a variable. Now we will find the charge on the element picked. So we have picked this element, so we have to find charge on it. So we know the charge on this rod is uniformly distributed. So in case of uniformly distribution, we already discussed that linear charge density will be charge per unit length, that is q by l. Now once we got linear charge density, we can find charge on this element. Length of this element is dx, so charge on this element dq will be lambda into dx. So from this you will get a dq as q by l into dx. So this is charge on the element. So once we found the charge on the element, now we know charge on the element and we know charge on the point charge, and we also know the distance between these two point charges. We can find the force. So the next step is find the force on or due to the element chosen. So force between these two. So now we can use Coulomb's law to find the force. So let us say, as it is a very small force, so dF and dF, as these two are like charges, it will be repulsive. So dF will be K into Q naught into dQ by distance is x, so x square. So from here we'll get dF as K into, so Q naught we can dQ we can substitute Q by L, so Q by L into Q naught, so it will be into dx will be there by x square. So this is the force on the element or due to the element. So that is our fourth step. So we found force of interaction between the element chosen and the point charge as dF is equals to K into Q naught by L into dx by x square. Now we want force of interaction due to entire rod and point charge, not this single element. So we have to add due to all these elements. So we cannot add manually, so we will use a technique called integration. So we use integral calculus to find total force. Okay, so what we'll do, integrate it from lower limit to upper limit. So here what is integration? Basically integration means addition or accumulation of force due to all the elements. It is mathematical tool to add all the forces, small forces due to each and every element. Now while using integration you have to be careful, as forces can be added only vectorically. You can add forces vectorically because force is a vector quantity, but here integration is a scalar addition. It is a scalar addition. So we have to be careful while using integration for vectors. So now what you have to do, cross check. While integrating you have to cross check if dF, that is force due to each element, is in same direction or different directions. If it is in same directions, whether it is a vector or scalar, you can add them directly, so integrate directly. And in case if it is in different directions, take components along perpendicular axis. You choose two perpendicular axes if it is 2 dimension. If it is 3-dimensional forces, you have to choose 3 perpendicular axes and take components of all these elements along these 3 perpendicular axes and add the components along each axis independently. Components along x you have to add independently, component along y you have to add independently, and components along z axis you have to add independently. And then you can find the total force. We will discuss a question on this as well. The next question will be based on this part. Now in this case, let us check it. In this case, if you check force due to this element, it is in this direction. And if you take another element, let us say this one, force, repulsive force. So due to all elements, the force is in same direction. Now it is the first case, it is in same direction. So what you can do, you can integrate directly. So let us integrate it. So where to where you have to add the forces, accumulate the forces from lower limit, that is x is equals to d, x is equals to d, to upper limit. I'll write it here. Upper limit x is equals to d plus L. Okay, so now we know integration of x 1 by x square dx is minus 1 by x, so k into q naught by L minus 1 by x, limits from d to d plus L. So from here we get f is equals to k q into q naught by L. So if I substitute upper limit, minus 1 by d plus L, plus minus of minus, it will be plus 1 by d. So this is what you get. So if I take it here, so F will be force of interaction, total force will be k q into q naught by L. So if I take it LCM here, d into d plus L, so it will be d into d plus L. So from here you will get d plus L minus d, d plus L minus d. So dd gets cancelled and L will left, LL gets cancelled. So we'll get total force as k q into q naught by d into. So this is a force of interaction between a rod and a point charge. So next question, let us concentrate on the different directions part. Now let us find electrostatic force between a uniformly charged ring and a point charge on the axis of the ring. So guys, in this case again we have to follow the steps. So let us follow the steps which we have discussed in the previous question. The first step is break the charge distribution, right? How to break it? You have to break it in a systematic manner such that we should be able to find force due to each and every element. So now let us break it. So how to break the ring? So we can break the ring like this. So only way to break the ring is this one. So as it is a linear distribution, so we have only one way to break it. So we are breaking the ring into these parts. So now if you see the same thing in this cross-sectional view, so the ring will appear like this. So the elements will be like this. So this is how to break it. So now we have to pick one of the elements. The second step, once we have broken it, all the elements, now we can find it due to each and every element. So now once you have broken it, cross check whether you can find force due to, if you have this element, yes, I can find this distance. As it is point charge, we are breaking it very smallly, infinitesimally small, so such that we can find this will be a point charge. So this is a point charge, we can find distance between these two, and once you know what the distance between these 2 points, you can use Coulomb's law to find the force. So there is no problem with it. So now the second step is to pick the element. How to pick the element? So I told you we have to assign a variable, because we cannot pick the element manually. If you pick the element manually, you have to add them manually, which is not possible. So we have to pick element by assigning a variable and increasing the variable by a small value, that is infinitesimally small value. So whenever you have circular distribution or a spherical distribution, it is always preferable to take angular terms, so angular variable. So I am taking theta with this axis. So let us take at an angle the element I am picking at an angle theta with this axis. So let us say this is a z axis. So this is x axis, and this is y axis, and this is z axis. So I am taking, this is z axis. If I take cross sectional view from z axis, I am taking at an angle theta, and by changing it by small angle d theta, now my element will be this one. This is my element, I am drawing it thicker. So this is my element. So now charge is distributed uniformly everywhere, right? So charge is distributed uniformly everywhere. So this part is my element. So we have picked this one. Now you have to cross check, right? While assigning a variable, you should be careful that by changing this one by certain lower limit to upper limit, the entire charge distribution should be, you should be able to pick entire charge distribution. So now if I take this theta as 0, I'll get this element. If I take theta as 90, I'll get this element. If I take theta as 180, I'll get this element, right? And if I take theta as 270, I'll get this element. If I take theta as 2 pi, that is 360, I'll get this element. So by changing it from 0 to 2 pi, I'll get each and every element in the ring. So that is how to assign a variable. So this is of radius r ring. So now at an angle theta, I have taken d theta. So we have chosen the element. So this is our element. So here it is at an angle theta. At an angle theta with this one. So this angle is theta, and we are changing it by small angle d theta. So this is the element. So this is my element. Okay, this is axis. In this diagram, so the element is at an angle theta with this z axis and making an angle d theta. Okay, so this is my element. So second step, we have pick the element. So, and we have to be careful such that by changing the variable from lower limit to upper limit, here my lower limit is 0, lower limit is theta is equals to 0, and upper limit is, again you will start from here and you'll come back to this point. So upper limit is theta is equals to 2 pi. So the lower limit is 0 and upper limit is 2 pi. So now I'll take some random variable. This is the element which you have picked. So now the third step is find the charge on the element, so which you have chosen. So find the charge on this element. So we know this element is making an angle d theta at center. So length of this one will be r d theta. And we know the charge distribution is uniform. So here it is a linear charge distribution. So we will define linear charge density. So linear charge density lambda will be equal to charge by total length. Total length of the ring is 2 pi r. So 2 pi r. So this is a linear charge distribution. So now my dq will be charge per unit length into lambda into length of this element. So length of this element is r d theta. So I'll get charge on this element as dq is equals to q by 2 pi r, that is a charge per unit length, into length of this one r d theta. So from here r gets cancelled. So from this you will get a dq as, q into d theta by 2 pi. So this is charge on the element. So once we found the charge on the element, then the next step, fourth step, find force between this point charge and this element. So we have to find the force. Fourth step is finding the force. So this is the line joining these two. So this distance is r and this distance is x. So this will be under root of r square plus x square. This distance will be under root of r square plus x square. So now this charge is dq and this charge is a q naught. We know charges and we know distance between them. Okay, so now we can find the force. So df will be on this, df will be k into, so q naught into dq by distance between them under root of r square plus x square whole square. So if I substitute the values, I'll get a df as k into q naught into dq, we can write as q by 2 pi into d theta. So q by 2 pi into d theta by the square. So square root and square gets cancelled. You get by under root of r square plus x square. So this is the force. So I can write it like this. So df is equals to this one. So this is the fourth step is done. So fourth step is finding the force between the element and the point charge. So once you got this force due to this element, now we have to add due to all the elements, not only this element, we have to add throughout the elements. So now we have to use a technique, mathematical tool called integral calculus. So we have to integrate it from lower limit to upper limit. Guys, I told you while using the integration, we have to cross check whether the forces are in same direction or not. Now we have to check whether all the forces due to each and every element is in the same direction or not. Now let us check it. If we take this element, the force will be in this direction. Let us draw the ring first. So if we join all the elements, right, each and every element will be, if we join with the point charge, so they will be looking like this. So they will form a cone over here. So they will form a cone. So now if we take force due to this element, this particular element, so it will be in this direction. Okay, and if we take this element, the force will be in this direction. So the force is changing, the direction of force is changing. It also makes a cone, right? The force will be in different directions like this. Okay, so now we cannot add all these forces directly. So now this is making an angle, right? Cone is making half angle alpha. Let us say this angle is alpha, so it is making half alpha. So now it is in the shape of cone. Now the direction of force df is different for different elements. What you have to do then? So I told you while explaining the steps that we have to take components along the axis. So we have different axes like this. This is x-axis and this is y-axis, and let us say this is z-axis. So we have to take components along 3 axes. Okay, now if we look at this one, if we take all the components in x direction, so component due to this one in the x direction, component due to this next direction, all these components will be in same direction, so they will be added. But if I see from here, I'll get the forces like this. The components, if you take it, the components will be like this. So components will be in different directions. Now in each and every direction you have the components and all are equal. So because the distance from here is same, so the magnitude of df will be same for all the elements. Now these component and this component cancel, so in y direction and z direction the net force will become 0. So we need not add in y direction and z direction, because logically or by graphically we can say the net force acting on it is 0. The problem is x direction, so we have to calculate in x direction. So let us take x components. So now df we got, so let us take x component in x direction, dfx. So dfx will be this is alpha, this angle will be alpha. Okay, so now dfx will be df into cos theta, df into cos alpha. Okay guys, so now let us substitute. So now first of all cos alpha value, so let us take this triangle. So if I take this triangle, so now if we take this angle will be equal to this angle alpha. So let us take this triangle. So this side is r and this side is x, so this side will be under root of r square plus x square. Now this is alpha. Here from this cos alpha value will be equal to adjacent side x by under root of r square plus under root of r square plus x square. So x by under root of r square plus x square, cos alpha value. So let us substitute this there. So we'll get dfx value as, df is this one, k into q naught by 2 pi into, if you multiply it, so you'll get x into d theta. So here we have r square plus x square whole power 1 by 2, and here you have r square plus x square. So if I multiply it, you'll get r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. So this is dfx, so the component of this force in this direction. Now we want to add all such components, right, integrating it. So from where to where you want to integrate it? Here theta is changing from lower limit is 0 and upper limit is 0 to 2 pi. So lower limit is 0 and upper limit is 2 pi. So from 0 to 2 pi. So fx will be k q into q naught, this all everything is constant, by r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2 into, here you have integral d theta or 1 by 2 pi into integral d theta is, integral d theta everything is constant, this is integral d theta will be theta, limits from 0 to 2 pi. So this will be 2 pi, so 2 pi gets cancelled, so we'll get fx is equals to, so we'll substitute the limits, you'll get 2 pi, so 2 pi and 2 pi gets cancelled, so we'll get fx as k into q naught, k into q naught into x will be there, into x by r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. So this is how to calculate force between a ring and a point charge on the axis. Now let us take one more example, that is force between a disk and a point charge on axis of the disk. So let us say the disk is of uniform charge density and charge on it be q and radius be r. Now a point charge is located on the axis of it, okay, and its charge is q naught. Now you have to calculate the force of interaction between these two charges. Now first step, so we will go by step as we discussed in the earlier questions. The first step that we have discussed is breaking of the charge distribution. So let us take the disk, and how to break it, as it is aerial distribution we can break it into several ways. In several ways we can break it. So the first thing, you may think that you can break it into horizontal strips like this, okay, so you may think that you can break it into horizontal strips, or you may break it into vertical strips, or you may also break it into sectors like this, you may break it into sectors. So there are different ways in which you can break this disk. Okay, when which to pick, in what way you have to break it. So there are several ways, but as we discussed, you have to keep something in mind, that you should be able to find force of interaction between all these elements and this point charge. That is very important. So when you break it into this horizontal strips, right, you don't know what is the distance between this one. Again, this will be a distributed charge. It is a length, it is not a point charge, so it is a length. Now linear distribution, or you can say it will become a linear distribution. So again you have to calculate the force between this one and this one. It is a lengthy process, so it is not possible. Here also in the same case, right, these also not point charges, they are also line charges, and we don't know how to find force of interaction between this kind of line charge and a point charge. So we didn't discuss that, so it is not possible. Let us say here also sectors, right, the sectors, we don't know how to calculate force between this sector and this point charge, so this is not possible. Then what is the way, right? Just now we have calculated the force of interaction between a ring and the point charge. So now what you can do, you can break this disc into concentric rings. So I can break it into concentric rings like this. So we can break it into rings. Okay, now we know due to each ring we can calculate it. Just now we got the formula for right, force of interaction between ring and a point charge on its axis. So now let us break it into rings. So this is how we have to break it. So the first step, we have break the charge distribution into concentric rings. Now the second step, we have to pick a ring, one of the element. So pick the element by assigning a variable. So as these are rings with the concentric rings with the different radius, now we will assign a variable radius. So let us assign a variable radius and change it by small value dr. So you'll get a ring of thickness dr. So you'll get a ring of thickness dr here. Okay, so this is of thickness dr. So ring of radius r. So if I draw the element here, this will be in this manner. So its thickness at a distance r, it is of radius r, and its thickness will be dr. So this is my element. So this is our element. So we have picked the element by assigning a variable and by changing it by a small value. Now we also discussed one more point you have to check, that if you change this element while assigning a variable, you have to be careful. You have to pick the variable in such a way that if you change this variable from lower limit to upper limit, you should get entire charge distribution. Now if I take this r value as 0, I'll get at this point. If I take r value as r by 2, I'll get somewhere midway, somewhere here. The ring you will get here. And if I take r value as capital R, I'll get this ring. So if I change the radius from 0, lower limit is r is equals to 0, and to upper limit r is equals to capital R, from r is equal to 0 to r equal to capital R, I'll get all the rings, all the elements which I have broken. So here my elements, I'll draw it here in this diagram. So these are the elements. From this I have picked one element, that is of radius, this is of radius small r. So my element is this one, this is our element. Okay, of radius r, small r. Now let us discuss the third step. So what is the third step? So first step, we have divided the charge distribution into concentric rings. In the second step, we have chosen one of the element. So once you have chosen the element, now the third step is you have to find charge on the element. So you have to find charge on this ring. Now as this is areal charge distribution, we discussed in areal charge distribution and it is uniform. So we will define a areal charge density or surface charge density as a charge per unit area of the disk is pi r square. Okay, so sigma is equals to q by pi r square. So this is surface charge density. Now charge on this one dq will be surface charge density sigma, that is q by pi r square, into area of this one. So what will be area of the ring? Area of ring is given by perimeter. Perimeter is 2 pi into small r into thickness. Thickness is dr. So this is dA. So charge will be charge per unit area into area of the ring, 2 pi into small r dr. So this is dq. So once we got dq, so we got the charge on the ring. So we know charge on the ring, we know point charge. Now previously we have discussed an expression for force of interaction between this ring and this point charge, and it will be in horizontal direction. Okay, so and the df value will be equal to, on this ring will be in this direction, on right point charge will be in this direction. So df value, what we got? So previously we got a df value as k into, instead of capital Q, now we have dq. So k into dq into q naught by into x by r square plus x square whole power, this is small r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. So this is the expression what we got in the previous question. So now let us substitute the values. This is the fourth step. We have found the charge, and then the fourth step is finding the force between the element and the point charge. So this is the force between element and the point charge. Now the fifth step, we have to add force due to all such elements, all the rings, all the concentric rings you have to calculate. So you have to integrate it. So now we discussed, while integrating you have to be careful whether you have to check whether all the forces are in same direction or not. So each and every force will be in this direction along the axis. We got it right, y components and z components we got 0. So all components, all forces will be in horizontal direction, all df's. So we can add them directly, so we can integrate it directly. So what will be the limits? From r is equals to 0 to r is equals to capital R. So now how to integrate it? So we have r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2, and the numerator we have x. So we have to use substitution method. First let us substitute dq value. So df will be k into integral k into dq value is pi gets cancelled, 2q by r square into r dr, into x you have q naught into x by r square. So this is small r, right? This is capital R, okay, sorry. R square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. So check it whether you have got all the variables or not. So dq will be capital Q by r square into 2r dr. So 2q into k into, yes, so from here we can take the constants out. So df will be from r is equals to 0 to capital R. So I can take 2k into capital Q into q naught into x, everything is constant, by r square out. So integral r dr by r square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. So now what we can do, we can take the substitution method. So let us take this inside function as t. So t is equals to r square plus x square. From here if I differentiate, you'll get dt is equals to 2r, x is constant, so 2r into dr, and x is constant. From this we get r dr is equals to so we get r dr as dt by 2. So r dr is dt by 2 and r square plus x square is dt. Let us substitute these values in this term. So if you substitute t value and the dt value in that expression, so we'll get a df as 2k into q naught into x by r square into integral, so dt by 2 by r square plus x square is t, so t power 3 by 2. So now integration of t power minus 3 by 2 will be t power minus 1 by 2 by 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2. So f will be equal to 2k q into q naught into x by r square into here t power minus 1 by 2 by 2 into minus 1 by 2. So 2 gets cancelled. So we'll get f is equals to 2k q into q naught into x by r square 1 by root t. So t power minus 1 by 2 into root t. So root t means r square plus x square. Now let us substitute the limits. So what will be the limits? X is the r is changing from 0 to capital R. So if you substitute the limits, you will get f is equals to 2kq into q naught into x by r square into 1 by, first if you substitute capital R, you will get under root of, so minus will be there, so minus is there. So it will be first, you will get under root of minus, it will be, if you substitute, so minus, if you remove the minus, it will be, limits will be exchanged. First I will substitute 0 in this, so you will get under root of x square, so it will be 1 by x square minus 1 by under root of r square plus x square. So this is what we get. This is expression for force of interaction between a disk and a point charge. So this is how to deal with a distributed charge and a point charge. So guys, try to understand the steps given properly, and if you have any doubt, please let us know in the comment section. So I will try to reply as soon as possible. Guys, if you find this video helpful, please hit the like button. In this series, I'll cover entire JEE syllabus. And apart from physics lectures, we will be coming up with exciting videos on career guidance, like review videos on engineering colleges and detailed analysis of all branches. And we are also planning to share informative videos on entrepreneurship. So if you don't want to miss out on these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.